Hello there, welcome to another video on investing on the stock market. I'm doing an industry focus today in the semiconductor space. This is a quite large industry and there's a lot of players, so let's get to it. Now, semiconductors are just things used in electrical devices to conduct electricity. So it's pretty much needed for all electrical devices. That's why it's such a big space. They're used in phones, tablets and computers. Absolutely all phones, tablets and computers. So this is almost become a basic need, just like food. It's a $440 billion industry annually in 2018, and it's growing at about 9% annually. So it's growing quite a lot faster than most industries still. This is not a new space, but it's still growing really fast. And if you look at the companies you can invest in, so these are only the public companies. These are the largest manufacturers, so not the largest sellers, just manufacturers actually making the chips. We have Intel Corporation at 56 billion, and these companies does other things as well. Samsung at 41 billion, Taiwan Semiconductor at 29, Qualcomm and Broadcom at 15 billion, Texas Instruments at 12, and then I added NVDA and AMD. These are actually quite small players, but very popular stocks, and a lot of you are interested in these, so I added them. NVIDIA does 7 billion, AMD does 5. Actually, very small companies. But they're in the news a lot, and they're growing really fast. They're some of the newer players. So most of these are US corporations, apart from Samsung and TSM, I believe. So US doing quite well. And as an industry, as most industries, they have an index that follows all the companies and tracks the performance. And this index is up 200% over the last 5 years versus the S&P 500's 66%. So these companies, yes, they're in a fast growing space, but the stocks have gone up a lot. And these companies have shown that they can outperform, they have good management, and they're able to do well for their shareholders. So this is actually not a very volatile space. It's not too much up and down. These companies are very stable, they're big, and they're safe. They're all quite safe investments. There is a little bit of dividend as well, especially in Intel and some in Qualcomm and Broadcom, I think. There's not many ETFs. There are a couple, but some of them are really small. So the semiconductor ETFs, so these ETFs hold pretty much all of these companies and more. We have SOXX at 1.6 billion, still a small ETF. SMH at 1.3, SOXL at 700. I believe this is a leveraged one, 3-time leveraged. PSI at 400 million, XSD at 300, and USD at 80 million. These are some tiny ETFs, and I would suggest just looking at the largest ones, the 2 or 3 largest ones, because when you get into the really small ETFs, the in and out flow is so low, so the liquidity is actually quite bad. Not much dividend. I think it's around 8%, maybe even less in these ETFs. And overall, I have some personal holdings here, keep that in mind. My favorites are Intel Corporation, because it's the largest, it's a global player, they have a great CEO, very high dividend, it's like 3.2%. And it's by far the industry leader, and this is a very exciting space. NVIDIA making the best chips right now, that's why I have it. It's a growth stock, very risky growth stocks. And for ETFs, I looked at all of them, and I would only go with SOXX because it holds Intel and NVIDIA and TSM in the top 5. The main difference is the distribution of the top 10 holdings. Some of them have Qualcomm and Broadcom high up, some have Intel on top. So this one had, in my opinion, the best holdings. And it's also the largest, and I believe it's the cheapest at like 0.3, 0.4%, which is quite expensive, but there's not much to choose from. So I would just go with pretty much one of these two. They're almost the same. And as a space, I think it's still going to outpace most industries, you know, automakers, food, groceries, whatever. I think that semiconductors are going to keep growing because, you know, we use so many electrical devices, and there's going to be a new one coming online. And you have companies like Samsung and Apple and Microsoft and Amazon just pushing so many electrical devices, Google as well, right? So some of the largest companies in the world are pushing out all these electric devices, and it's almost like every company wants to have their own electrical device, like a tablet or a phone, where they can upsell their customers and make money. So I don't see this industry slowing down at all. If you don't want to look into each individual company, I would just go with SOXX, great ETF, and I'm sure it's going to outperform the S&P 500. And yeah, let me know what companies you're invested in. Do you have any of these ETFs? I will do a stock showdown of semiconductors in the future. It might be the next one up. I'll see what I can do. So let me know what you think. Subscribe, drop me a comment, and I'll see you guys in my next video.